keep doing this. So we are filming. Please begin. Time's in.
So the scene that we were assigned is found in the play King Lear at the beginning in scene 1, from line 240 to 295. In this particular scene, King Lear has already divided his land among his 3 daughters and asked them to profess their love to him. When it comes to his last daughter, Cordelia, he is profoundly disappointed by her response and takes away her dowry. So where we begin is when King of France is accepting Cordelia as his wife, and King Lear pretty much says that he doesn't want to see her ever again. So we will address King Lear's perception and how it's clearly flawed because it doesn't correspond to reality. So first of all, King Lear shuns the one daughter who truly cares for him. At line 262 to 263, Cordelia states, "Yet alas, stood I within his grace, I would prefer him to a better place." In this line, she pretty much says that she still worries about him and wished to take care of him, even though she was just banished and hated upon by her own father. Secondly, ironically, King Lear keeps the two daughters who he believes are the worthy ones when they aren't. Cordelia qualifies the remaining sisters as the jewels of their father. The positive connotation of the word jewel shows how much the king is disillusioned and contrasts with the pejorative language at line 252 to 253, where he says to King of France, "Let her be thine, for we have no such daughter, nor shall ever see that face of hers again." No such here has a pejorative connotation and shows how much he doesn't wish to see Cordelia, who truly does care about him. The king may be honest in the way that he's treating himself. He doesn't put on a performance to please others, but this rashness of his makes him a bad leader, according to Regan and Goneril. Goneril states at the line 284, "The best and soundest of his time have been but rash," which pretty much says everything. She's saying that at the peak of his kingship, at the best of his time, he was still as bad as he is, and they are to expect, they referring to Regan and Goneril, are to expect the worst from now. Also, Regan states at line 282, "Yet he hath ever but slenderly known himself," him being King Lear, which shows how much the king is unaware of his own situation. Thirdly and lastly, Cordelia is genuinely good, when her sisters are the exact opposite. They are cunning, manipulative, and very calculating. Cordelia, however, sees people for who they truly are and even feels bad for the ones who don't deserve it. At line 258, she says to her sisters, "I know you what you are, and like a sister, I'm most loath to call your faults as they are named." Most loath here emphasizes how much she's against criticizing her sisters when she has a feeling that they're preparing something bad. This feeling is reinforced with her last reply at line 271, when she says, "Time shall unfold what pleaded cunning hides, who covers faults at last shame them derides." Here, cunning refers to her sisters and their evil plans. This line foreshadows the events that will occur later in the play. In all, King Lear is not a bad character. He is fairly honest, but his honesty is expressed through his rash and irrational behavior, which makes him unfit to have any power whatsoever. Yet he is the only one who's blind to it. His perception of others are no better, since it rarely corresponds to reality, which we can see through how he sees Cordelia, the one true daughter, and Goneril and Regan, who are pretty much planning against them.
Another thing that we see in this extract is the theme of value and worth. They are a result of the character's own perspective of themselves and the other's perception of them. First, we have Cordelia, who can't satisfy her father by professing her love, so he takes away her dowry. Through the king's eyes, the one who can say the better is the one who is worthier, because the king kind of shot himself in the foot because she's the one who loves him the most and is the most loyal to him. In contrast to that, we have the King of France, who saw her true value, and despite the king's perspective, he decides to marry her. And we can see that with a metaphor at line 245, when he says, "My love should kindle to inflamed respect." So we see that the image that we have is like a small spark that exploded. So he had a small feeling that became important really fast. On the other hand, we have King Lear means little to Goneril and Regan. They want all of his power, and they don't think that he is worth of his title. Because of his impulsiveness and lack of judgment, and of course because of his age, they think that he should step down and not have anything to do with the kingdom. We see at line 280, he says, "With that poor judgment he hath now cast off appears too gross." Or later on we see at line 292, "If our father carry authority with such dispositions as he bears, this last surrender will but offend us." So they are greedy and want to achieve a higher status and higher power, and their ingratitude towards him is clear here, as they don't want anything to do with him, and so the two sisters collude against him. On top of that, they Regan specifically insults Cordelia when she tries to reason with them and call them out, like, "You should take care of our father." At line 268, she says, "Well are worth the worst that you have wanted." So they say that she deserves every bad thing that is happening to her, and they turn their back on her really fast because they think that she's less than him, and with that comes the fact that they're going to have more power than if they were three to have this power. Overall, the main idea that resonates through this passage is the perception that one has on the other, which is strongly linked with the perception that we have on ourselves. As we see, how King Lear perceives himself is not how the others sees him. Other people see him as being impulsive, crazy, and he's rash. And because of that, his blindness to his daughter is what leads him to having a betrayal, and which shows they think that he is unworthy. The theme of blindness is present in the passage, which later on becomes one of the predominant themes through Gloucester's blindness, leading him to see his son's hidden agenda. Thank you.
Right?
The seventh scene of King Lear is essential in the comprehension of the play as a whole, for the tension that builds up in it and the violence that occurs are significant in the character's psychological evolution. The extract that we will be analyzing is located towards the end of the scene, shortly after Kent has been put in the stocks. Lear has a confrontation about it with his eldest daughters, who remind him that he is old, foolish, and therefore unable to make wise decisions. Then they all start quarreling about Lear's men and the quantity of it. After difficult negotiation, Lear is forbidden any servants or soldiers at all, even if Goneril and Regan had promised him 50 and then 25 knights. He insults his daughters, warns everyone that he is becoming mad, and heads out in the snow. In the analysis, emphasis will be put on Goneril and Regan's attitude towards Lear, and then on the father's reaction, showing through diction, stylistic and literary devices, and the use of themes.
First, this extract is detailed on the attitude of the two sisters, Goneril and Regan, towards their father. Now that the roles have switched and that they have become the more powerful ones. The main theme displayed in this conversation that is going on in the extract is between Lear and his two daughters, and the theme is manipulation. So the sisters are shown to be disrespectful and ungrateful, even though they owe their privileges and power to their father. They have entirely dropped the loving act that they show in the beginning of the play, and now that they have gotten what they want. At line 407, on page 174, Lear says, "I gave you all, and the answer from the daughters is a blunt, and in good time you gave it." Regan admits her impatience and that her speech was merely a manipulation to get what she desires. The sisters also join forces and are synchronized in their wickedness to intimidate Lear even more. An example of this is how they are authoritative towards their father, which is the opposite of the usual family dynamic. Usually the parents will be giving orders to the children, and now the children, since they have power and don't desire anything else from their father, are the ones giving orders. Regan says at line 405, "To bring but 25, to no more will I give place or notice." She is giving him a command about his soldiers, as we've stated previously, and she is saying that she will not allow any more soldiers than this, and she's treating her father as a spoiled child. Furthermore, the sisters are condescending and do not treat him like the strong monarch he was not so long ago. Their view on him, or their fake act towards him, has completely changed. And on line 396, Regan says, "Ja, or so many, sit that both charge and danger." So they're condescending in this way because they are telling him that what he desires is too expensive and too dangerous and not necessary. They want him to depend on him in order to reduce their power, his power even more.
So of course, the sister's attitude leads to a specific reaction from Lear. The former king is shocked at first by his daughter's demands, as we can see in the line, "What must I come to you with 25?" So this rhetorical question conveys a tone of surprise, disappointment, and disgust, because Regan was the last hope that Lear could cling on to have at least one understanding and loving daughter, but Regan, just as her sister, shows some cruelty, which leads to a disillusion from Lear. He perceives his daughters as they really are and understands their true motives and lack of filial love. As we can see in the line, "Those wicked creatures yet do seem well favored when others are more wicked." By using the word creature, he dissociates himself from the intimate bond that is supposed to exist between a father and his daughter, and perceives Goneril and Regan as monsters, almost mythical or supernatural individuals, perhaps to justify in a way their harshness towards him that he cannot rationalize or understand. Lear also repeats 2 times the word wicked, while increasing its intensity each time, because he explained that his daughters are both very mean, but that Regan is a little less mean than Goneril, which makes her look better, even if in fact she isn't a good person. So this accumulation of wickedness proves their cold-hearted and cunning personalities, and makes the reader feel some pity for Lear that has to satisfy himself with wickedness either way. Lear realizes that he is his daughter's victim and that he is at their mercy, but he doesn't want to give them the satisfaction to show some weakness, because he swears that he will avenge himself eventually. And he uses a metaphor to explaining that he prefers for his heart to break into 100,000 flaws than to weep in front of his daughters, which is an extreme and tragic way of saying that he'd rather die than show his daughters that he is hurting, because he knows that this is the goal to exert some control over them. By doing so, Lear tries to regain his majestic stature and kingly personality that he had before, and he asks God to provide him with a noble type of anger. And he describes tears as women's weapons, and he says that he doesn't want to use those weapons, he doesn't want to cry. And here Lear is clearly stating that men have to remain stoic during hard times as a manifestation of their nobility or of their social standing, whereas women are allowed to show emotions and perhaps to manipulate people with their sorrow. And Lear is not only a man, he is a former king, so he has to show strength in this situation. And it's his way of reassessing his power in the relationship and convince himself that he still has some control in some way over the situation. He also realizes that the difficulty of hiding his anger and sadness, because he admits that it will lead him to madness, like you can see in the line, awful, I'll go mad. So this is an exclamatory sentence to add a dramatic aspect to the claim. And the use of the future simple tense gives a sense of certainty to it. So in this period of self-consciousness, Lear is sure that he will become mad. And he has a moment of lucidity about his own madness, which is ironic. But this duality in madness, which alternates between reason and moments of pure delirium, is shown multiple times in the following scene and is characteristic of Lear's madness.
That's 8 minutes. Go ahead.
So,
Judy and Judy.
we had our extract we had is the beginning of scene 9. That scene is right after Lear has been expelled from his daughter's house. So while before that scene he is quite sad at the situation, he's sad that his daughters have betrayed him. Now he's very angry and he's outside with the fool, and he asks nature to destroy everything and to punish his daughters. So we will analyze that extract, and we will show how the rank and position of nature in hierarchy is different from Lear's point of view and from the fool's point of view.
For Lear, nature is above everything. Nature is almighty because it has powers superior to anyone or anything. Between line 2 and 7, there's an accumulation of hyperbolas that show that nature is more powerful than man. With only one thing, it can do something that will take a lot more effort or time if it was done by man. For example, at line 2, Lear says, "You cataracts and hurricanes, spout till you have drenched the steeples, drown the cocks." It shows that only one element from nature, hurricanes, can drown an entire city, and it would take a lot more effort if it was done by man. Also, at lines 6 and 7, Lear says, "Thou, all shaking thunder, smite flat the thick rotundity of the world." That specific hyperbolas coming from the accumulation mentioned before shows that the nature can do impossible things, such as flatten the earth. Nature is almighty also because it is separated from everything. At line 18 and 19, Lear says to nature, "You owe me no subscription. Why then, let fall your horrible pleasure." The entire thesis present with horrible pleasure shows that only because nature is not associated with Lear, because it doesn't owe him anything, it can do what it wants. It can do bad things to anyone it wants. Also, between line 21 and 24, Lear says, "But yet, I call you servile ministers, that have with 2 pernicious daughters joined your high-enjoyed battle against a head so whole and white as this. Oh, this foul." This shows that the fact that nature presents itself as a servile minister, but joined the sister against him, is offensive to the senses because it goes against Lear's perception of nature.
In contrast to Lear, for the fool, nature is not almighty, it's not above everything, because first, because we can protect ourselves from it quite easily. We can see that at line 11. He said, the fool says, "This rainwater outdoor." So he compares nature and the storm and basically nature's powers to something that is very inoffensive, like rain. And this euphemism downplays the powers of nature. And we can also see that for Lear, it is easy to protect ourselves. It would be easy for Lear to protect himself from the storm all throughout the lines 25 to 36 with the mocking tone that the fool adopts. That tone highlights the fact that everyone who doesn't seek shelter in the storm is either foolish or mad, and everyone in their right mind would do so, and so it's easy to protect ourselves. We can see that mocking tone with the fact that the lines are, it's a song, so the element of song and singing highlights the fact that it's the situation is ridiculed and it's laughable. And we can also see that with the level of language the fool uses. He uses very crude language. He makes multiple references to genitals with the codpiece that protects the genitals. And he makes a reference to a toe that can also be seen as a man's genital. And he also makes a reference to beggars or poor men seeking many women. So that whole idea of crude language highlights the stupidity of Lear's behavior. And the fool also shows that not protecting ourselves is foolish, but it's also dangerous because men will suffer if they don't. So it's very ironic because he says that because of the pride they won't protect themselves, because men prefer to protect their genitals than to protect their own head. So that the pride stops them, but it's also the pride that will suffer in the end if they don't seek shelter. For example, at line 33, he says, "Man shall have a corn cry ho." That's some people think of that line as a reference to a sexual disease. So again, it's the idea of attacking the manhood. And even if we don't see that as a sexual reference, it still means that being outside in the storm brings inevitable problems and corns to complain of. The fool also shows that you cannot protect us, that everyone is affected, and just because of your position in hierarchy, just because you're a king or you're wise, doesn't mean that you're going to be protected from the storm. At the lines 12 and 13, he says, "Here's a knight pities neither wise man nor fool." So nature doesn't pity anyone.
In conclusion, the rank of nature is different from the perception of Lear and from the perception of the fool. For Lear, nature is above everything, while for the fool, nature is not almighty. In this oral commentary, we decided to present nature as it is, as the trees and the storm. However, it can be seen as the representation of the psychological state of the characters, their nature. The storm being the conflict in Lear's mind and him going to inside.
So the passage that we got is from scene 14 when Gloucester returns to his castle. So without Gloucester's knowing, Edmund betrayed him by telling Cornwall and Regan that Gloucester helped Lear and that he received a message from the French army of the French invasion to help Lear. So Regan and Cornwall want to take a revenge on Gloucester, and we will further analyze the themes of abuse of power, fate, human versus nature. So I'll start with the theme of abuse of power of Regan and Cornwall. So these two characters really want to show their dominance on Gloucester, and there is a really huge gap and opposition between Regan's position of power and Gloucester's vulnerability. So imagery is really used throughout this passage to enhance their cruelty toward Gloucester. For example, when Cornwall will plucks out his eye, he literally says out val jelly. So as a reader, we really get the image of the scene and really feel the hatred of Gloucester. So after there's the theme of fate. that is really present in this passage. As a reader, we feel a lot of empathy for Gloucester because he doesn't fight back. He's just tied to like a chair, he can't do anything. But at the same time, he is still confident because he believes in a higher power that controls human beings. He says, "Naughty lady, these hairs which thou dost ravish from my chin will quicken and accuse thee." So the personification of like his hair shows like his superiority because his hair is kind of like acting on the behalf of like kind of a god because he believes in fate and astrology. Like for example, in another example, when Edmund tells him that Edgar has betrayed him and is like doing a scheme to dethrone him, like he's going to say that it's caused by the eclipses and the sun that are not in his favor. So yeah, we really see that he's very superstitious, and he believes that like God will punish Regan and Cornwall for what they did. Also, he says, "I shall see the winged vengeance overtake such children." So the fact that he used the word children to describe Gloucester and Regan also puts like emphasis on his wisdom and to like it condemns their act. It's almost as if he feels kind of like pity even if he's the one who's like being attacked, just like an adult who's trying to give a lesson to a kid, for example. So his belief is also like very similar to Cordelia's belief in fate. So both characters, when they have hard times, they won't intervene and try to change what's happening to them because they all believe that like the good side always wins.
Okay, so when questioned about why he took the king to Dover, Gloucester responded that it was because he couldn't bear to see Regan's cruel nails pluck out his poor old eyes, nor her fierce sister Goneril, in his anointed flesh rash for his fangs. So in this extract, Gloucester dehumanized both Regan and Goneril. Instead of referring to Regan with the pronoun you, he reduces her to her cruel nails. So this highlights the dreadful atmosphere felt by Gloucester when confronting Regan, but also brings out his outstanding loyalty as he doesn't try to buy pity from the enemies or deny the fact that he had indeed helped out the king. So, and instead he just insults them in their face and based on his real perception of them, and that shows that he privileges integrity over even preserving his life, which is very admirable. And in the same passage, the metaphor comparing Goneril to a cruel beast points out both her inhumanity and dangerosity. In fact, she is relentless in trying to hurt the king, who is viewed by Gloucester as a holy figure, as he talks about his anointed flesh, as anointed means like holy. And so in the context where religion was still very important and influential at the time, it appears as common sense that no human would ever dare to betray or try to hurt God unless they have lost all their sense of morality or reason. And so through Gloucester's vivid description of Goneril's bestiality, the reader can easily portray her as a psychopath in real life, which creates a mood of terror and discomfort. So this dishumanization of Regan and Goneril is followed by the personification of the sea in line 56, as Gloucester says that even the sea would have boiled up and quenched the stellar fires. So he's talking about the storm in which the king was thrown out by his daughters. So by contrasting the empathy of even inanimate elements of nature to the ungratefulness of the two sisters, Shakespeare really succeeds in bringing out the depth of the daughter's cruelty.
Speaking of the daughter's cruelty, we can really see in this passage the true nature of Regan and the importance of hierarchy for her. Like before, it's kind of Goneril who's the most cruel sister. She's the one who gets the ideas of driving like Lear, that drove Lear to madness. However, in this passage, we really see the cruelty of Regan, like, and she is she's ready to stepping on others to climb up the ladder. For example, she's calling Gloucester an ungrateful fox, but that's like really